Perfect. Thank you very much. They are ready to start. I will introduce my new guests, Mr. Reiner, Mr. Witschi. We are happy to hear you, and it is a case study I've heard. And case studies are always good, always on the university to give work to the students. And please, we are happy to see you.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, the S-BPM conference is about research, about business and education. So now we want to go into the part business. We would like to show two solutions which we implemented into the production area of Swisscom, Switzerland. And I will do just a short intro, and then we will go in action. So we had yesterday the gamification. So we will see live demonstration action from the service inspector. That's an app. And behind the app, there's, I would say, a framework based on processes running and the app themselves, and of course, end-to-end process controlling. So for the intro, I must say we have a header of, let's say, an iPhone self-ordering process. That's the story which you can see on the agenda. But it starts earlier, very early. So end of 2010, we started doing a solution concept for a problem which Swisscom faced in the area of business service monitoring. And 2011, Swisscom decided to say, okay, now we want to see how the solution concept can work. So can work means we want to see it in a live phase. That means we invited customers, partners, and employees, of course, from Swisscom to test the solution we did. And then 2012, we implemented, so there was a running phase of this proof of live, and then we implemented the go live, which was, or the launch was January this year, of the Swisscom Service Inspector. So what happened now? Middle of 2012, a colleague of Markus, the head of customer care, have seen the proof of live phase, what we did with the app, with the service inspector, and said, I have a big problem right now. We have the iPhone 5 launch, so that's a campaign. They say, okay, we know from the past, from the history, there are a lot of requirements, a lot of orders, so you will have a big peak in the very first beginning phase, the iPhone 5 getting launched by Apple. And he said, we have only 3 weeks' time to find a solution because I would like to short the times, the waiting times for the customers. So the goal was cut the waiting times on the one hand side and give the customers a very good experience, a specified customer experience by ordering the new iPhone via an iPhone app. So in there I just want to show some slides. Why slides? As I said before, it was a campaign, which means it was into production, was running for 2 months, and then the campaign was finished. So now we don't need this process anymore. So it was just a process we did next to the project we had with the business service monitoring. So you can see now on the first screenshot an SMS authentication. So we did a verification. We had also some security issues there to say that must be secure if somebody wants to order a new iPhone. And on the second screenshot, you can see the configuration mask, the possibilities for the customers to say, I would like to have a white one or a black one, and the summary. And after you clicking on the summary in the Metasonic suite, the order have been processed. So that is an overview about the communication we had. So the whole business process modeling for this process have been done in 8 hours. That means I've been driven by train 4 hours, and in these 4 hours I did the whole models with the internal behaviors, and afterwards we had some review session, we revised some of these models. That was another 4 hours. So within 8 hours the business models have been finished and were possible to execute it. And in the end, after we executed, we had a process controlling in place, so we could see exactly where the orders are or where they not are. That means also if the customer's just clicking around the app and say, I would like to have this configuration or this configuration, we could see near time, which means 15 minutes delay, exactly where the orders are. Okay, and that was the process we did within 3 weeks' time, based on the service inspector. Now I would like to hand over to Markus.
Thank you very much, Martin. I'm happy to be here today. As I've been introduced, I'm working for Swisscom. When I joined Swisscom in April 2006, one of the main issues we were facing from the beginning were that we had, when we had bigger interruptions in our network, our call centers got immediately overloaded. I think you know this from your experiences you have probably with your internet service provider or service provider. So I was looking for a solution how we can bring this internal information we had about our interruptions faster and more efficient towards the customer. And in 2010, in spring, I was sitting with a colleague in a restaurant, and we were discussing if he can still stay or if he can go back to work. He was picking up his smartphone, was looking at it, and said, "Oh, my servers are all working. I can rest a little bit." So I said to me, why did we, as Swisscom, not have such a solution? That's an easy solution, which was so obvious. We all have the information data of all our interruptions in our systems. The only way we have to find is an easy and efficient way to transfer that to a smartphone. So then we started the discussions internally, and of course also with my suppliers I knew, and one of the suppliers I knew was Martin. And basically I know him in the beginning as implementing process controlling. And I said to me also, if one day I have to implement the process by my own, I will not forget about process controlling. So this was also part which was in scope beside of the process execution. And then we faced another issue. You know, today we have at least 2 big players in the smartphone market. One is Apple with iOS, one is Google with Android, and all the others popping up and striking back now. So for which platform are you implementing such a solution? So then we put that requirements together. We found a company which were able to implement basically the solution one time and deploy it for several platforms. And I said to me, that is the way to go, and that's why we choose this supplier. It's called Digitalpatrioten AG from Freiburg. And what we delivered there is a simple application where we see all our products. where we can simply click through it. You see we have here a wire interruption where we already are in checking the success of the resolvement of this interruption. We said this is happened in Schaffhausen, and it happened from today from 11:50 to 12:45. So this is easy understandable information we can now have available in at your smartphone. Why a smartphone? You may think, well, Swisscom could also publish this information about interruptions on their website. Yes, we do also, but try to access our website if your internet connection is not working. So with a smartphone, you have the unique opportunity to go by 3G or via Edge, connecting to the mobile network, or if the mobile network is not working, you can try via VLAN, via public VLAN, or via your personal VLAN at home. So you have at least a 50-50 chance to reach the information, and you may now think, okay, what happened if both is not working? Well, if both is not working, I think you will read that in the paper. You don't need the app anymore, because we would have such a huge interruption then if the 3G network is not working and the internet is not working. We have really other issue there. So how is it working now with handling the processes itself? And also here I was very happy to see the new approach developed by Metasonic with using the S-BPM method. One other issue you face always if you develop software, you develop the software and then you come to testing, and you know if you have issues and you are close to launch, you are forced to launch, so testing is cut. That's one thing. And the other thing is about documentation. If testing is still done, at least the documentation will not be that good as it has been, as it would have to be. And here what I really like with this solution is if we look at one process to work on, I have always here the process directly displayed in here. So I know how this process is working, how is the process really working, because if the programmer thinks, okay, I do that a little bit different, or I add a function there and I don't need that, you will see that at least in the business that the process has been changed. Normally, processes are not that good described that a programmer really has no opportunity to do one thing or the other thing. So here you really see if one was implementing the process a little bit different. So I really liked this approach. So once I see now I have here, I see now here where I stay in the process, what possibilities I have, and with that I have a perfectly documented process. And the other hand is also the training material is halfway done. And here, that was the main reason I said we have to go for this solution, and of course use its browser in Swisscom later on. So how is it working now? When I made a check on the interruptions displayed in the service inspector, I saw one interruption here. Is 337, where the end message was not processed correctly. So I am looking now for this interruption in my processes. I see now here 371. I choose this one, and now I have to see what end date I have to add here. I open it to work on. I enter here the 5th of March and 800. I save this, and now we have to look at. And now, if I'm not sure what can I do, I once again can check the possibilities I have here in the process. I see I have these three options, and I go for the options I want to actualize it on the service inspector. So I process this, and now it should change here some seconds later. I already received the notification, so this was processed correctly. And now it should change into a false controller. Did it? No. In Bearbeitung still? No? My colleague, yeah. You see, I was working on it right now, but I forgot something. I have to do that now because this is now wrong. I go for it again. I change the status into a false controller. And now it worked. Okay, alright. So I can leave that now. It remains now 2 hours in the false controller. Once again I can check this. It remains now in the false controller, and if I don't push it manually, after 2 hours the timeout will occur and will set it to fixed. So once again, one of the key major features we were choosing Metasonic was that we really see which process is executed, how is he executed, and in which step I am, so I know exactly what I have to do, what I can do. And once again, this is really unique now today in Swisscom. I know no other system like SAP, Oracle, or anyone else. You never have tied the documentation of executing the process. That's tied directly to the application. And now we come to the third part. We're still good in time. As I already mentioned, process controlling is also a main thing I want to implement if I can implement the process. I don't know how many of you receive reports and you look at the figures and say, well, okay, but how can that be, or is it wrong, or what is the issue there? So most of the applications you get reports from, you will see nice dashboards like that. So you will see the Durchlaufzeit, for instance here. You will see how many orders we received during the year. You will see from which sales channels for which product. You will see that. To report a KPI, that's not that an issue. But then is when it comes to the truth. How can it be? And once again, I go back here to show you why I want to have process controlling in place. If you know that the x-axis is the Durchlaufzeit, the time to process an order, and you know on the x-axis the date. If I say we introduce process controlling here, I think you were not that surprised. So you see exactly when we introduced process controlling, after that we really had the processes under control. So for me it takes now about 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and then I know I don't have to take care about these processes, we really have them under control. But the second thing is, if really someone is now asking how these figures come together, I am now able to make a drill down very easily. And after a short time, I really see each single process which was leading towards this KPI. So the question is, how can be that KPI? Is that KPI correct? can that be, is answered also in a very short period of time. And this is why we choose also this platform here to go with. And in addition, if you really want to go into detail of the process, you can go and see all the functions in detail also here. So from the dashboard we saw before, from the cockpit, you come very easily in very few steps down to every single detail. And also here you can go forward. If you see you have issues with some orders, with some interruptions we were talking before, you can easily act on that and put some thresholds and really steer your business with that. So, to summarize, we saw these three major issues we had to overcome within our project. One was we had to decide for which platform we are developing this app. And by the way, you also saw that we developed a web app, and this we developed for our employees because they were not allowed to use smartphones during they were serving the customer on the phone. So the employee has the web app in front of him to discuss with the customer. The customer has a smartphone application. The second part was to have really a nice and lean and forward implementable business process platform. And the third part was to have implemented a really nice and powerful process controlling. And with that, you have really implemented the process life cycle very, very nicely.
Thank you very much, Mr. Witschi. Thank you very much, Mr. Reiner. An excellent, understandable case study, I think so. But perhaps there are some questions. Yes, I have a question. What about changes? When you have changes in your process, how is the effort to change the model and to change the application? I think I have the answer in the brain, but
that's also one. I already mentioned one major part is that you have a good documentation of the process, and there it starts already. If you have a good documentation of the process, you can identify also very fast where you have to change it and what you need it. And therefore, also here, if I have a change to the process, I put that change into paper, and then you can really roll it out fast. It depends, of course, also about the complexity and the thing you want to change. But normally we are able now to make changes over the weekend. And when I compare that with other applications or other platforms developing or serving our systems, of course they are a lot more complex also. But if you have processes like that which are not used in a high volume like other processes where you go into SIGO or SAP systems, it's a very nice thing that you know already you have a process in place or you have a platform in place where you easily can change. If you have to change by coding, you have to go through tests. And here you have, if I now want to have a third opportunity here and I want to make another check on that, I'm really fast here to do those easy changes.
Thank you very much. So this is a success factor.
Of course it is. And I'm really wondering now how fast we will spread the word through Swisscom that we can now with that. Exactly. You have also to imagine in Swisscom, if you cannot go and implement the process in a single SNAP system, you go back and you make your Excel exports and you send that to a colleague via email, please can you work on that? Here you have a perfect tool that can fit exactly into workaround processes and fully featured simple SAP processes can really fit in between and close the gap. And of course, it could also interface to those legacy systems.
Perhaps a second question this side. What's about the test effort to test the changes? Is it to make it real, to make it hot, to make it as a productive system?
Yeah, there was also another question. I saw you, but yeah, about the test phases. So we have three building blocks. So that means on the one hand side, where we have the process models, and on the other hand, the app themselves as a front-end part and the process controlling. So that means the most effort we really have is only to put them together. And therefore we have a process in place, another one, where we say, okay, that's the kind of change and test process, and there it's quite easy to bring them together in the right order. And therefore it's easier. From each building block themselves, it's normal testing and based on Metasonic, the real process testing is made with validation component directly while we change the process. So that's just minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reiner. I come to you.
Do you see any other areas of implementation of this solution within Swisscom?
We already were talking about two projects. One project was the iPhone 5 project, and one is now this project, the Service Inspector. And we are now heading for a third project where we have exactly the problem that we have issues with our collecting, money collecting process. You have sometime before you were notified that this customer will be locked soon, and depending on the size of the customer, we have to take action on that. And here we face exactly the problem that we have no chance at all to change the legacy system like SAP or like Oracle Siemens that fast or that easy, that it's worth to implement the process we only use 1,000 times a month. And this is how exactly the next area we are heading for, that we take this process, we feed that into Metasonic Suite, and process the data there, and then spread out the needed information towards our customer care agent or our sales agent, where they decide if the customer may be blocked or not, or if the customer will be called or not, or when the customer called that he said, yes, he will pay soon, we will need that back, or we will change the system. So this is now one of the next processes I want at least to implement, and now I have to convince my superiors.
I have a question too. For your Störungsverfolgung, you executed a subject-oriented business process in the Metasonic Suite, but your process controlling was based on ARIS, and you drilled it down to an EDC model.
Yes.
And I would be interested how these two are interrelated or connected to each other.
That's a very interesting question. I mentioned in the beginning that I know a new model from process controlling project we already had. So I knew about that I can do perfect process controlling with RSPPM. And with the Metasonic Suite, I have the possibility to make the statements in the same way that they can be read into the RSPPM in a very easy way. And if we still have some time, I really could show you that you find the same functions in the process in here. Let's choose for one. And you find almost every function again in the process controlling here. Let's make a little example here. you find here probably Neue Störung. I think you should also find that in here. So we did, well, exactly. Neue Störung, the first step in here, you find also in here. So this is really, really nice, and so you have really a closed loop. I have to mention also some of the functions we did not implement in the Metasonic suite directly. We did some coding also, let's say for the notification of the customers. It was done directly in code or some functions like that. And but the goal is, of course, that each function you see here, you will see later on in process controlling. And once again, I already mentioned it's unique in Swisscom to have processes you execute documented like that. It's even more unique than we see afterwards the process in here. Of course, it has a little price tag on that also. But once again, if you want to come to transparency, to flexibility, to really know your business, what's happening, I think this is the way to go. And of course, I'm happy to hear alternatives. When they are around, you know my name, and you can write that to me. But so far, I think we really choose the cherries out of what's available today in the market.
Thank you very much for this talk and the discussion, and I'm sure you get a big applause for